This is the story about how I bought this watch that I didn't even know existed. So let's get right into it. So for anybody who has been following me for a considerable amount of time, they know my affinity for the brand that is Vacheron Constantin. I am just a huge admirer of their timepieces and especially the history of the brand, it being not only the longest continuous running watch brand in the world, but also the oldest watch brand currently in the watch industry, all the way dating back to 1755. I'm a big fan of their history line. I think it's bar none probably the best lineup of any watch brand out there in the world today. I'm just a huge fan of their historical models. And so having that kind of reimagined and designed essentially for the 21st century really does speak to me in a way that I think no other model line from really any other brand speaks to me. Obviously, we're talking about dress watches over, for example, the sports watch range. Now, I've been looking for a Vacheron Constantin watch for myself for a very, very long time, and I'm sure many of you have seen my watch collection video where I actually showed off a Vacheron Constantin 56. Now that watch has since left my collection, but at the time when I actually bought it and decided that was going to be my first Vacheron wristwatch, I think it was a pretty obvious choice. I tend to gravitate towards watches on a bracelet, although I do wear a suit on a day-to-day basis. You know, I am much more of a younger guy. I like sportier kind of attire on the weekends, for example. So a bracelet watch just made a lot more sense than something, for example, on a leather strap. However, by the same token, the 56 was also just that kind of sleek design that fit the profile, kind of like a dress watch, but having that sports watch look to it. Love the sector style dial, but I especially love that bracelet, which I think really changed the entire, not only my perception of the watch, but also just the entire look of the watch itself, making it much more wearable and sporty and better suited for everyday wear. Now at the time, I'd kind of contemplated a ton of different watches from Vacheron, be it the Overseas, which unfortunately I just came to grips with the fact that it's just too big for my 6¼ inch wrist. I just can't pull off that 41mm case size, so here's hoping they create a 39mm or even a 38mm in the future. It just tends to protrude off of my wrist to a certain extent that I just feel uncomfortable, and I just feel it looks too big personally from my wrist. Second was, again, models from the historic lineup. For example, looking at the 1942, which is their triple calendar line, super historically inspired wristwatch, very, very kind of old-fashioned watchmaking brought to the 21st century, which I really liked about it. But by the same token, it is a bit of an older style and kind of a design maybe that doesn't necessarily suit somebody who's my age, 25 years old. So I kind of decided to pass on it, and I was kind of in between maybe getting a Corne de Vache, which is one of my all-time favorite watches from Vacheron, and also a 1921. But again, it just felt like it was maybe just not for me at the time. So I ended up trying on the VC56 on a bracelet, and you know, I was sold from the moment I put it on my wrist. But that was until I saw this watch right here. This is a traditional with a blue dial, and the story behind it is really not that complex, to be quite honest with you. I actually saw a friend of mine post it in his newsletter that I'm subscribed to, you know, in terms of new arrivals of watches that he just got in. It's a friend of mine I made through the industry, and I called him right away instantly when I saw it and said, I gotta have it. And you know what? I was unlucky to the fact that there was actually somebody who had technically spoken for it before me, but after he had spoken to him and said it was, you know, actually for me personally, for my personal collection, the person who ended up getting it, who was another dealer out, I believe in Florida, ended up just saying, hey, you know what, let's give it to Marco and he can add it to his personal collection. So this is a traditional in 38mm in a white gold case, but with a very special blue dial that Vacheron did in a limited edition of 15 pieces, and it's actually a numbered edition. This one is number 11 out of 15. Super, super unique watch. A watch I didn't even know existed. You can find, I could give you the reference, we could pop it up on the screen. You will not find really any information about this wristwatch out there. And so for me, it actually has to be something that was probably a special order from some kind of a VVIP client from Vacheron themselves. In terms of the actual watch itself, it's just spectacular. 38mm case in this traditional kind of case format, just absolutely perfect on my wrist. The proportions are sublime. Of course, you get this incredible movement in this wristwatch. It's a movement that's shared between both the traditional and the 1921, a movement that was actually reviewed by Kari Voutilainen, who spoke extremely highly of it. The finishing is fantastic. It has the Geneva seal, which, you know, is the knock a lot of people had on the 56, which, you know, is totally fair. This is an in-house movement from Vacheron. Overall, I just love the simplicity of the design, right? Just at sub-seconds at 6, the incredible blue dial that just is this matte finish that is just awesome in the light, and it's just a spectacular watch. I put it on an Aaron Bespoke strap, a leather strap from my good friend Aaron Bespoke out of Montreal, and I think it really just elevates the timepiece to the next level. I actually ended up speaking to our Vacheron rep about this watch just to get a little bit of history or information about where this comes from, and even he didn't know where it came from. So they had no idea where it existed. So I'm currently getting in touch with the brand directly up in Switzerland and figuring out what is kind of the history. So it'll be interesting to find out where this watch ultimately comes from. But yeah, this is my new timepiece, and one that will for sure be a very, very long-term keeper. I was looking for that quintessential Vacheron Constantin watch that would become kind of a cornerstone of my watch collection. And it's a brand that I hold in a very, very high regard. And I wanted it to be the right timepiece, something that was my Vacheron. And I think this is certainly the one, right? It being a limited edition, a numbered edition at that, and also just being one that is so rare. Again, something you won't even find posted online, or you won't even find any articles or anything written about it. I'm the first person I've ever seen post this watch online. So yeah, it's just a super, super special timepiece. And yeah, I'm so proud to own it in my collection. I think this is what really makes Vacheron special, right? Is these kind of historically inspired timepieces made kind of in the fine watchmaking realm, that traditional Swiss watchmaking kind of realm, but brought really to the 21st century. I think that's what speaks so much to me with Vacheron Constantin timepieces. And I think that this watch really evokes a lot of that traditional watchmaking, but made in a modern way. So yeah, this is my new Vacheron wristwatch, and I'm so, so proud and happy to have it as part of my collection. Guys, if you enjoy this type of content or enjoy my content in general, please be sure to subscribe. And of course, leave me some comments down below of what you'd like to see from me in the future. It's always good to get your feedback and topics that you guys would actually like to see. Of course, I'd really appreciate if you liked the video. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much all for watching.